Jack Sullivan had been on the road for more than 2 decades, hauling freight across the country, driving through rain, snow, and blistering heat. His rig, a battered but powerful Peterbilt 379, was his home, his office, and his refuge. He had seen everything the highways had to offer: wrecks, desperate hitchhikers, drugged-out truck stop drifters, but nothing prepared him for what he was about to face. It started with a job that seemed too good to be true. A late-night call from a logistics company he had never worked with before. The pay was double the usual rate, and the pickup was in a remote industrial area outside of Houston. The client wanted discretion, no questions asked, and a tight delivery window, overnight to Chicago. That alone should have been a red flag, but Jack had been in a financial hole since his last engine rebuild. He told himself it was just another load. When he pulled into the pickup location, a warehouse with no company markings, the lot was dark except for a single security light. A man in a black jacket motioned him inside without speaking. The trailer was loaded within minutes. The cargo was in sealed metal crates, unmarked and secured with heavy locks. Jack wasn't an idiot, he knew something was off. But he wasn't being paid to ask questions. As soon as he hit the highway, the tension settled into his bones. The silence of the night, the hum of the engine, the faint weight of something unseen pressing on his chest. He was being followed. A black SUV had been tailing him for the last 30 miles, keeping a careful distance, never overtaking him. At first, he thought he was being paranoid, but every time he slowed down, the SUV slowed. When he switched lanes, it did too. He had run loads for shady clients before, stolen electronics, untaxed liquor, but this felt different. His mind started racing. He needed to lose the tail. He took an unexpected exit onto a 2-lane state highway, pushing the rig hard through winding turns. The SUV followed. Jack clenched his jaw, gripping the wheel tighter. This wasn't some routine surveillance. Whoever they were locked onto him. The darkness swallowed the road, the only illumination coming from his headlights and the occasional flickering gas station sign. After an hour of aggressive driving, he thought he had lost them. He pulled into a truck stop, parking in a shadowed corner of the lot, his pulse hammering. He got out, stretched his legs, and checked his rig, pretending everything was normal. Then he saw it, another vehicle, different from the SUV, a beat-up pickup truck idling near the entrance. 2 men inside. Watching him. This wasn't random. They knew what he was carrying. He wasn't dealing with small-time thieves. This was organized. He needed to get moving. He fueled up fast and hit the road again, sticking to back highways, avoiding main interstates. But the paranoia was growing. It wasn't just the SUV and the truck at the stop, there were others. Unmarked sedans parked near overpasses, headlights flickering on in his rearview mirror at odd moments. He was in the middle of something big, and he was alone. He considered dumping the cargo, but there was nowhere safe to do it without being seen. The sealed crates weren't just valuable, they were worth killing for. Jack had spent years keeping his nose clean, staying out of trouble, but now he was a moving target. By the time he hit the outskirts of St. Louis, his exhaustion was catching up with him. He had been driving for over 10 hours, his nerves stretched thin. That's when the ambush happened. A semi-truck jackknifed across the highway ahead of him, forcing him to slam on the brakes. Tires screeched, the weight of the trailer nearly pushing him into the wreck. Before he could react, men were approaching, armed. Jack had seen enough in his life to know when to fight and when to run. He reached under his seat, grabbing the revolver he kept for emergencies. The men were moving fast, spreading out, trying to box him in. He wasn't about to let that happen. He threw the truck into reverse, slamming the gas. The trailer fishtailed, clipping one of the gunmen and sending him sprawling. Jack spun the wheel, angling the rig toward the only open path, a narrow shoulder leading down into a ditch. He didn't hesitate. The truck bucked, metal groaning as he forced it down the embankment, barely keeping control. Bullets pinged off the trailer, but he kept going, pushing through the uneven terrain until he found a service road. He didn't stop until he was miles away, deep into Illinois. His hands were shaking. The revolver sat on the passenger seat, the weight of it heavier than it should have been. He had just barely made it out alive, but this wasn't over. By the time he reached Chicago, dawn was breaking, the sky painted in streaks of gray and orange. He found the drop-off location, a deserted lot behind an abandoned factory. The place stank of old oil and rust. No one was there. Then, headlights. A convoy of blacked-out SUVs rolled in. Jack's gut twisted. He wasn't about to get out of the truck. He waited, heart pounding, as the lead vehicle's door opened and a man in a suit stepped out. Cold, calculated eyes met his. Jack had two choices: deliver the load and walk away, or go down fighting. He had survived the night, but something told him that this job was never meant to have a clean ending. The man gestured, and two more figures stepped out. One opened his jacket, revealing a silenced pistol tucked into a shoulder holster. Jack knew that look. These weren't just criminals, they were professionals, likely government agents, cartel enforcers, or worse. He wasn't supposed to leave this place alive. His mind raced. He needed a way out. The truck was still running. If he floored it, he might take them by surprise, ram through their vehicles, and disappear. But if they shot at his tires or the fuel tank, he was done. Then, something unexpected happened. Another vehicle came screeching into the lot. A black pickup truck, different from the others. The driver's side door flew open, and a man in a leather jacket jumped out, wielding a shotgun. He fired before anyone could react. One of the suited men dropped instantly, the other diving for cover. Chaos exploded. Jack didn't hesitate. He slammed the gas, the truck's tires kicking up dust as he roared forward. One of the SUVs tried to cut him off, but he plowed through it, sending metal and glass flying. Gunfire rang out behind him, bullets punching into the side of the trailer. He didn't care. He had one job now: survive. He didn't stop until he reached the outskirts of town, pulling into an abandoned industrial lot. His heart pounded as he jumped out, gun in hand. He had no idea who had saved him or why, but one thing was clear: this job had just turned into a war. And Jack Sullivan was done running. Jack Sullivan stood beside his battered Peterbilt 379, breathing hard, sweat rolling down his face despite the cold morning air. His hands were still shaking, the revolver heavy in his grip. The echoes of gunfire and screeching tires still rang in his ears, but for now, the lot was silent. He was alive. But not safe. The black pickup that had saved him was gone, vanishing into the city's shadows just as quickly as it had appeared. Whoever the driver was, they had bought Jack a few extra minutes, maybe an hour if he was lucky. He knew damn well that the men in suits weren't going to let this go. He stepped around to the back of his truck, staring at the trailer. The heavy metal crates inside had nearly cost him his life, and he still had no clue what was in them. But someone did. And they wanted it bad enough to send professionals after him. Jack clenched his jaw. He had two options: dump the cargo and disappear, or figure out what the hell he was hauling and use it to buy himself some leverage. Running wasn't his style. Not after they had tried to kill him. He climbed back into the cab, yanked the truck into gear, and rolled out of the industrial lot. He needed a place to lie low and a way to crack those crates open. He knew just the guy. An hour later, Jack pulled into a junkyard on the outskirts of Joliet, Illinois. The yard was a rusted graveyard of twisted metal and forgotten machinery. A man in greasy overalls waved him through the gates. Gus. An old friend. A mechanic, a welder, and a man who didn't ask questions. Jack parked behind a row of wrecked cars, stepping out as Gus walked over. His face was a mask of suspicion until he saw the bullet holes in the side of Jack's trailer. "Jesus, Jack. What the hell kind of trouble are you in?" Gus muttered, wiping his hands on a dirty rag. "The kind where I need a crowbar and some privacy," Jack said. Gus didn't ask. He led Jack to a tool shed, handed him a pry bar, and stood back as Jack climbed into the trailer. He worked fast, popping the first crate open with a grunt. The lid clanged onto the trailer floor. Jack stared. Inside, packed in tight foam casing, were stacks of military-grade weapons. Assault rifles. Grenades. Tactical gear. It wasn't just guns, it was enough firepower to start a small war. Jack exhaled sharply, the reality of his situation settling in like a weight on his chest. He wasn't hauling stolen electronics or black market booze. He had just driven a rolling armory across state lines, and someone was willing to kill for it. Gus whistled low. "You need to get rid of that. Fast." Jack nodded. He wasn't arguing. But before he could respond, the distant roar of engines cut through the morning air. His stomach dropped. They had found him. The first SUV plowed through the junkyard gates, followed by two more. Blacked out, no plates. The same suits from before. They had wasted no time. Jack jumped out of the trailer, running for cover as gunfire erupted. Bullets pinged off the steel husks of old cars. Gus dove behind an engine block, cursing. Jack reached into his cab, yanking his revolver free. 5 shots. Not enough. He needed more firepower. He sprinted back to the open crate, grabbing the nearest rifle. It was sleek, military issue, preloaded. He barely had time to aim before one of the gunmen rounded the corner. Jack squeezed the trigger. The man went down in a heap. More shouts. More gunfire. Jack ducked behind a wrecked pickup, firing off rounds, keeping their heads down. Gus had found a shotgun somewhere and was blasting away, cursing in between shots. One of the SUVs revved its engine, trying to ram through the lot. Jack spotted it just in time, lining up his shot. He fired. The windshield spiderwebbed, the driver jerked the wheel, and the SUV slammed into a stack of crushed cars, flipping onto its side. The remaining men hesitated. Jack could feel it. They hadn't expected this kind of resistance. He fired again, forcing them back. Then, just as quickly as it started, it was over. The remaining suits scrambled into their vehicles and tore out of the junkyard, leaving behind the dead and dying. Jack lowered the rifle, breathing hard. Gus wiped blood off his arm, just a graze. "That was a goddamn mess," Gus muttered. Jack nodded, stepping over one of the fallen men. He knelt, rifling through the guy's pockets, looking for answers. He found a wallet, fake ID, and a burner phone. He flipped it open. One unread message. "Secure the cargo. Kill the driver if necessary." Jack exhaled slowly. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. He turned to Gus. "I need to disappear." Gus nodded. "Yeah. And I think I know just the place." By nightfall, Jack was deep in the woods of northern Wisconsin, holed up in a cabin Gus's cousin owned. Off the grid. No cell service. No neighbors. He had ditched the truck, burned the remaining weapons, and taken only what he needed. But he knew this wasn't over. Whoever had set this up had reach. They had resources. He had been a pawn in a much bigger game. And now he had made himself a problem they needed to erase. Jack wasn't waiting for them to come knocking. They wanted a war. He was going to bring it to their front door. Jack Sullivan sat in the dimly lit cabin, his mind racing as he pieced together the situation. He had been a trucker for over 20 years, and this was the first time a job had nearly cost him his life. The men in suits, the weapons shipment, the ambush, none of it was random. He had stumbled into something big, something deadly, and now he was on the run. But Jack wasn't the kind of man to run forever. The burner phone he had taken from the dead man in the junkyard sat on the wooden table in front of him. He turned it over in his hands, his gut twisting. The last message told him everything he needed to know: whoever was behind this was still hunting him. He had killed some of their men, destroyed their shipment, and disappeared. That made him a liability. Jack took a deep breath and powered on the phone. He needed answers, and this was the only link he had to the people trying to kill him. He scrolled through the call log. No saved contacts, just a list of incoming and outgoing numbers. One number kept appearing. Jack memorized it, then smashed the phone against the floor. He wasn't stupid enough to use it. But he could find out where it came from. Gus had a friend in Chicago, a guy named Vito who ran a chop shop and dabbled in black market information. If anyone could trace the number and find out who was behind this, it was him. Jack packed his gear, loaded up the revolver, and stepped outside. The night was quiet, the air cold and sharp. He had borrowed a rusted old pickup from Gus's cousin, nothing fancy, but it would get him back to the city. As he drove south, he kept his eyes on the rearview mirror. He knew they were still out there. Watching. Waiting. By the time Jack reached Chicago, the city was just waking up. The streets were wet from an early morning rain, neon signs flickering against the puddles. He parked a few blocks from Vito's shop and walked the rest of the way, keeping to the shadows. The garage looked the same as it had 10 years ago, rusted metal doors, the smell of oil and grease thick in the air. Jack knocked once, then twice, the old signal. The door creaked open, and Vito's face appeared, older and meaner than Jack remembered. "Damn, Sullivan. I thought you were dead." "Not yet," Jack said, stepping inside. Vito locked the door behind him. The garage was cluttered with half-built engines and stripped-down cars. Jack pulled out a scrap of paper with the number from the burner phone. "I need this traced." Vito raised an eyebrow. "You in some kind of trouble?" "Yeah." Vito sighed, rubbing his jaw. "All right. Give me a few minutes." Jack watched as Vito pulled out a laptop and started typing. The room was silent except for the hum of the computer. Then Vito frowned. "This number, it's bouncing off multiple towers. Whoever owns it is using encrypted reroutes. But I can tell you where the last real ping came from." Jack leaned in. "Detroit." Jack exhaled. He had spent years hauling freight through Detroit. It was a city filled with ghosts, abandoned factories, and crime. If this operation was running out of Detroit, he was dealing with serious players. Vito looked up. "Jack, whoever these people are, they've got resources. Government-level encryption. You sure you want to poke this bear?" Jack nodded. "I don't have a choice." Vito shook his head. "Then you'd better be ready. 'Cause once you step into Detroit, you ain't walking out unless they let you." Jack already knew that. Jack drove into Detroit under the cover of night, the skyline a mix of decay and neon. He had ditched the pickup outside the city, taking a stolen sedan instead. No paper trail. No way for them to track him. The last signal from the burner phone had come from a warehouse near the river. He parked a few blocks away, scanning the area. It was quiet. Too quiet. Jack checked his revolver, then made his way toward the building, keeping low. He slipped through a broken side door, his footsteps silent on the concrete floor. The warehouse was massive, rows of shipping containers stacked like tombstones. Jack moved carefully, listening. Voices. He crept closer, staying behind the shadows. Two men stood near a table, rifles slung over their shoulders. On the table was another shipment of weapons, identical to the one he had been hauling. Jack's stomach turned. This wasn't just one load. This was a full-scale operation. He stepped back, planning his next move, then the cold press of a gun barrel touched the back of his neck. "Wrong place, wrong time, trucker," Jack cursed. A hand grabbed his shoulder, shoving him forward. The two guards turned, eyes narrowing. One of them grinned. Well, well. We've been looking for you." Jack stayed silent. His mind was already working, scanning for an opening. The first man punched him hard in the stomach. Jack grunted, but didn't go down. The second man grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back. "Boss wants to see you." Jack knew what that meant. They dragged him across the warehouse, shoving him into an office. A man in a tailored suit sat behind a desk, sipping whiskey. His eyes were cold. Calculating. "Jack Sullivan," the man said, setting his glass down. "You've caused me a lot of trouble." Jack smirked. "Did my best." The man leaned forward. "You have something of mine." "Where is it?" Jack knew lying wouldn't work. He needed to stall. "It's gone," he said. The man's eyes darkened. "Wrong answer." The first punch sent Jack to the floor. Blood filled his mouth. He spat, laughing. "That all you got?" The man sighed. "I don't have time for this." He nodded to one of the guards. "Put a bullet in him." Jack tensed. Then, the lights went out. Gunfire erupted outside the office. Shouts. Chaos. Jack didn't hesitate. He drove his elbow into the guard's gut, grabbed the revolver from his belt, and fired. The man went down. The boss scrambled for his gun, but Jack was faster. He grabbed the man by the collar, slamming him against the desk. "Who are you working for?" Jack growled. The man laughed through bloody teeth. "You think this ends here?" Jack tightened his grip. "I think you're gonna tell me everything." But before the man could answer, another explosion rocked the warehouse. Whoever had just crashed the party wasn't on Jack's side. And he was out of time. Jack grabbed a rifle from the dead guard and ran, bullets cutting through the air around him. Smoke filled the warehouse as men shouted and died. He spotted a side exit and sprinted for it, diving behind cover. Outside, a black SUV was waiting. The driver's door opened. The man in the leather jacket from Chicago stepped out. Jack raised his rifle. "Who the hell are you?" The man smirked. "Your only way out." Jack hesitated. More gunfire. The man tossed Jack a set of keys. "Get in if you want to live." Jack caught the keys. Then he made his choice. He jumped into the SUV, the engine roaring to life as they tore out of the warehouse. Behind them, the entire building exploded in flames. Jack clenched his jaw. This wasn't over. Not even close. The black SUV tore through the streets of Detroit, tires screaming against the cracked asphalt as Jack Sullivan held onto the door handle, his heart pounding. The man in the leather jacket gripped the wheel with a steady hand, weaving through traffic like he had done this 1,000 times before. Jack's pulse was still racing from the warehouse shootout, the adrenaline keeping his mind sharp. He turned to the driver. "You gonna tell me who the hell you are?" The man smirked, eyes locked on the road. "Name's Bishop." "That's all you need to know for now." Jack narrowed his eyes. He wasn't in the mood for games. "You showed up at the junkyard. You just saved my ass again. You don't do that without a reason." Bishop took a sharp left, sending Jack slamming into the door. "Reason is, you just burned a major weapons deal to the ground. The people running that operation? They're not the type to forgive and forget. Jack clenched his jaw. He already knew that much. And who the hell are they? Bishop exhaled, as if debating how much to tell him. You ever hear of the Vori? Jack frowned. The name wasn't unfamiliar. The Vori v Zakwan. Russian organized crime. Heavy hitters. Smugglers, assassins, arms dealers. Great, Jack muttered. I'm on a Russian mafia hit list. Bishop nodded. Not just any branch. You messed with Anton Belaikov. He's one of the biggest arms traffickers in the country. The weapons you were hauling? They were meant for an international buyer. Millions of dollars lost, and now they're looking for blood. Jack exhaled slowly. He had figured he was in deep, but this was worse than he expected. So what's your angle? He asked, watching Bishop carefully. Why are you helping me? Bishop took another hard turn, finally pulling the SUV into an underground parking garage beneath an abandoned building. He shut off the engine and turned to face Jack. Because I've been hunting these bastards for a long time. You just lit a fire under them. That means we have a window, before they reorganize, before they come after you with everything they've got. Jack stared at him. We? Bishop leaned back, smirking. You want to run for the rest of your life? Because that's your only other option. They will find you. And when they do, they'll kill you slow. Jack let that settle in. He had spent his whole life running freight, minding his own business. But these people had come for him. He knew deep down that running wasn't an option. Not anymore. He took a deep breath. All right. What's the plan? Bishop grinned. We hit them first. Jack followed Bishop into a hidden room beneath the abandoned building. It was a safe house, walls lined with weapons, blueprints, surveillance monitors. This wasn't some street-level criminal operation. Bishop was prepared for war. Bishop grabbed a file from a table and tossed it to Jack. Belaikov operates out of a private compound just outside of the city. Security is heavy, ex-military types, armed to the teeth. We won't be able to walk in through the front door. Jack flipped through the file. Aerial photos, security layouts, guard rotations. So what's the move? Bishop pointed at a section of the compound near the docks. Their next shipment is arriving tonight. That's our in. We slip in with the cargo, plant explosives, take out as many as we can, and send a message. Jack nodded. It was insane. It was suicide. But at this point, he was out of options. When do we go? Bishop checked his watch. We've got 6 hours. Get ready. The night was thick with fog as Jack and Bishop crouched in the shadows near the dockside warehouse. The air smelled of oil and salt, the distant hum of engines vibrating through the steel structures. Jack adjusted his vest, gripping the silenced pistol Bishop had given him. Tell me again how we're not gonna die. Bishop smirked. Stick to the plan. The plan was simple: get inside with the cargo, take out the guards quietly, plant explosives, and get the hell out before anyone knew what hit them. The first truck rolled in, its headlights cutting through the mist. The security checkpoint was manned by armed guards, scanning each vehicle before waving them through. Jack and Bishop moved fast, slipping between the stacks of shipping containers, keeping low. Bishop nodded toward a lone guard standing near the entrance. Jack exhaled, moving quickly, silently. He wrapped an arm around the man's neck, cutting off his air. The struggle lasted only seconds before the body went limp. Jack dragged him into the shadows. Bishop gave a nod of approval. Nice. They slipped into the compound, weaving through the maze of crates and supply stacks. Jack could hear voices, Russian accents, men laughing. They had no idea what was coming. Bishop handed Jack a small detonator. "Plant these on the fuel tanks. We'll blow this place sky high." Jack moved fast, placing the charges on key structural points. Every step was a reminder of how deep he had gotten himself into this mess. But at this point, there was no turning back. Then, as he placed the final charge, he heard it. A gun being cocked behind him. He froze. "Move, and you die," a thick Russian accent growled. Jack turned slowly. A massive man, bald, scars crisscrossing his face, held an assault rifle leveled at his chest. More men emerged from the shadows, weapons drawn. Bishop was nowhere to be seen. Jack clenched his jaw. He had been caught. The Russian smirked. "You have made a very big mistake, trucker." Two of the men grabbed Jack's arms, wrenching them behind his back. His mind raced. He had one shot at this. The Russian leaned in. "Belikov will want to see you personally." Jack smirked. "Yeah? Tell him I said." He stomped hard on the nearest guard's foot, twisting his body, breaking free. In one motion, he grabbed the man's pistol, firing point-blank into his chest. Chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the night as Jack dove behind cover. He pressed the detonator. A massive explosion ripped through the compound, flames bursting into the sky. Jack sprinted through the chaos, dodging bullets. Then, another explosion. Bishop had done his part. Jack spotted a truck, engine running, doors open. He ran for it. A gunshot ripped through his shoulder. He stumbled but kept moving, ignoring the pain. He threw himself into the driver's seat, slamming the door. He gunned the engine, smashing through crates, bodies diving out of the way. Bishop appeared out of nowhere, sprinting toward the truck. Jack yanked the door open, pulling him inside. The compound was a firestorm behind them. Jack pressed the gas, speeding through the gate, bullets chasing them. Bishop grinned. "Not bad, trucker." Jack gritted his teeth, gripping his bleeding shoulder. "We're not done yet." Because Anton Belikov wasn't dead. And now, he was coming for them. Jack Sullivan gritted his teeth as pain radiated from his wounded shoulder. The truck barreled down the highway, the rearview mirror reflecting the burning remains of Anton Belikov's compound. The mission had been a success, at least partially. They had destroyed the shipment, taken out a good number of Belikov's men, and sent a clear message. But Jack knew it wasn't over until Belikov himself was dead. Bishop drove with a manic grin, wiping sweat from his brow. "Hell of a job back there, trucker. But you're bleeding all over my seat." Jack smirked despite the pain. "I'll buy you a new one." Bishop kept his foot on the gas, weaving through the sparse late-night traffic. "We need a place to lay low, patch you up, and figure out our next move." Jack's mind was already working. "No more running. We hit Belikov before he regroups." Bishop raised an eyebrow. "You sure you didn't take a bullet to the head too? He's gonna be on high alert." Jack nodded. "Exactly. He'll be paranoid, making mistakes. We take advantage of that." Bishop considered it, then grinned. "All right. You got a plan?" Jack exhaled. He had been thinking about it the moment they left the burning compound. "We lure him out. Make him think he still has control." Bishop glanced at him. "And how do we do that?" Jack pulled out the burner phone he had swiped from the compound. It was still intact, and more importantly, it had Belikov's direct line. Jack dialed. Bishop's eyes widened. "You're calling him? Are you insane?" Jack let it ring. Then, a click. A slow, heavy breath on the other end. Jack smirked. "You're running out of men, Belikov." Silence. Then, the thick Russian accent. You have no idea what you have done, trucker. Jack leaned back, pressing the wound on his shoulder. I know exactly what I've done. I burned your weapons. I killed your men. And I'm not done yet. Another pause. Then Belikov chuckled. You think you can touch me? I own this city. Jack shook his head. Not anymore. I'm giving you a choice. Walk away, leave the country, and disappear. Belikov scoffed. And if I don't? Jack smiled coldly. Then I come for you. Belikov was silent. Jack could hear him breathing, the weight of the threat settling in. Then Belikov exhaled. Meet me at the river docks. 1 hour. The call ended. Bishop shook his head. You really think he's gonna show up without an army? Jack cracked his knuckles. I'm counting on it. An hour later, Jack and Bishop crouched on the rooftops overlooking the river docks. The place was dark except for the occasional floodlight sweeping over the water. A convoy of black SUVs pulled in, men spilling out, rifles at the ready. Then Belikov stepped out. He was tall, broad, wearing a black coat, his expression unreadable. He stood with confidence, hands in his pockets, as if he owned the night. Jack exhaled. That's our guy. Bishop nudged him. So what's the play? We can't take them all. Jack smirked, pulling a small detonator from his pocket. Who said we have to? Before Bishop could respond, Jack pressed the button. The docks erupted. Explosions tore through the SUVs, fire and debris ripping through the air. The shockwave sent Belikov's men flying, panic erupting as flames lit up the river. Belikov stumbled back, eyes wide in shock. He turned, running for cover. Jack and Bishop moved fast, descending from the rooftop. Jack's boots hit the ground hard, his shoulder screaming in protest, but he ignored it. Belikov was making a break for a speedboat tied to the dock. Jack sprinted after him. Belikov turned, pulling a pistol, firing wildly. Bullets whizzed past Jack's ear. He didn't stop. He tackled Belikov just as he reached the boat, slamming him onto the dock. The gun skittered away. Belikov growled, throwing a wild punch. Jack blocked, driving his fist into Belikov's gut. The Russian grunted, staggering back. Jack pressed the barrel of his revolver against Belikov's forehead. This ends now. Belikov sneered. Kill me, and another will take my place. Jack shook his head. Not this time. He pulled the trigger. Belikov collapsed, his body slumping against the wooden planks, blood pooling beneath him. It was over. Jack exhaled, the weight of the last few days crashing over him. Bishop jogged up, looking down at the body. Damn. You really did it. Jack nodded. No more running. They stood in silence, the flames from the SUVs reflecting in the dark waters. Then Bishop clapped him on the back. Come on, trucker. Let's get out of here. Jack grinned. Where to? Bishop smirked. Wherever the road takes us. 6 months later, Jack Sullivan rolled down an open highway, the wind in his face, a fresh rig beneath him. The past was behind him, buried along with the men who had tried to kill him. The road stretched ahead, endless, free. Jack smiled. He had won. And no one was ever going to stop him again.